What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Devil's Advocates. Today it's going to be myself, BP, and Jake. Guys, it's been quite the last 24 hours after last night. How we feeling?
Still a little banged up from last night. I was at the game, but we're out here. You know, we're living. Had a good time, except the fact that I did not have a good time. But I had a good time. So, how about you guys?
How's your neck, BP, from the whiplash of that game?
It was a roller coaster.
That game was something else. I mean, we can kind of jump right into it. That game was like a tale of three. That was like three different games in one. I think I saw some stat. It was like that might have been like the first. It was like a baseball stat. It was like that was the first time Washington has like shut out a team 3 straight goals. They've given up 4 straight, scored 2 straight, and like that was the end of the game. I mean, that game was.
Yeah, I think it was something like
You saw it too, right?
scoring multiple goals with none against in the first, getting scored against with
I
four
think that
with
was it.
none four in the second, and then getting another three in the third with none against.
Yeah, it was a very baseball stat.
I would just like to throw out there that the side of the arena I was sitting on saw zero of the goals. Every single one of the 10 goals was on the same net, and I was not sitting by it.
That was also, yeah. Last night was crazy. That was funny. I think so. I think Daniel mentioned that, or they mentioned that on the broadcast. They were like, every single goal has been on the left side. I'm like, yeah, you're right. That net was just cursed.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was sitting on the. I always sit on the Devils shoot twice side
Yeah.
for the single purpose that statistically I should see more of the Devils goals. I didn't see any goals on our side, not one. So it was
so
rough.
from our boy Bill Spalding, who apparently gets in the mud a little bit, but we can touch on that maybe a little bit later. But he tweeted out this morning that in Devils home games, the 4 games at the Rock so far this season, the left side net, so the hot net last night, has had 22 goals scored in it in total. The other net has had 8.
Wow.
That's quite the.
Wow.
It means nothing.
No,
It
it
probably
definitely doesn't.
means literally nothing, but one of those fun little stats.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We don't have to really touch on the Islanders game from last week or whatever, but just to kind of tie into what's been going on, we it would be a disservice if we didn't just touch on how ridiculous Jack's been playing. What is it? I think
Yeah,
he got up to 17 points last night. He had
17 and 6 games.
yeah, he had back-to-back 4 point games, and then almost had another 4 point game last night. He hit the post late in the third to tie it, but I mean, 17 points, 6 games now. I mean, with McDavid being out for, I don't know how much longer he's out. I think it's kind of like a medium-term injury, but he's going to definitely put himself, and already has put himself, into the MVP discussion like early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, there are a fair amount of NHL defensemen who are going to get 17 points on the season. It's insane that 6 games into the season, we're like ready to hand out the Hart Trophy already because that's how crazy he's been. And we've seen so many of these stats come out that, like, you know, the fastest to X points or the most points in X games or whatever. And they date back to like the 80s and 90s. Like all of these stats are no one has had this hot of a start since Mario Lemieux in like 92. Oh, nice rhyme. Um, but it's insane when you think about it because Connor McDavid exists. Like Connor McDavid the past few years has put up, you know, 150 points per season and he hasn't even started off this hot before. So it's really meaningful. It's not just a random streak. This is like historic that we're watching this. So I'm very, very excited to see his season because he is setting himself up with a cushion almost that even if he only scores a point in a game, that's like a disappointment. He could be a point per game player, and it's seen as like extreme regression. That's insane.
Yeah, at this point, I think it would be like a shock if he didn't finish with over like 110 points or close to it
So
at this point.
I did crunch numbers on it a little bit, and maybe I'm not a mathematician or anything, but I do believe if Jack scores at a 1.1 point per game pace from this point on, so
Mm.
just over 1 point per game from here on out, he'll break 100 points.
Yeah, that's probably,
which is bonkers. We're
it's
6
gonna
games
happen.
in.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I'm also going to throw this potentially hot take. I haven't seen too much discourse around it, but I really do feel like probably the last 2 games or so, and I know we're only 6 games in, so it's nothing crazy, but I feel like Jack has just been Jack. I don't think he's been next level Jack Hughes that we've seen him just take over solo games. I mean, he's had, 3-point nights, another 3-point night, but it really, for this season, it just feels like, oh, he has guys that can actually score on his line where, he would set Holla up last year and it would just be a flub. And now it goes to the Foley stick and it's actually in the net now. So he's been doing this for years. Is just
Right.
previously the guys would just not actually put it in the net for him.
Yeah.
He would still do the insane setups and basically give you a tap in like he gave Timo last night. The guys would just miss it. And now he actually has some goal scorers on his line. And it's like it's casual for Jack Hughes. I think a 3-point night is like, yeah, I could literally see him doing this every night if his line mates are putting in what he sets up.
That really is like kind of the beauty of it, is because it's not some random player going on some insane streak. We're really just seeing how good Jack Hughes is. And I think that's the major difference and what Devils fans have been screaming from the rooftops for years now. I mean, you guys remember even in his first season or two, the analytics crowd loved him because his underlying numbers were like just bubbling underneath the surface, ready to erupt. And we had the casual, media talking about how he's a bust, he's not scoring enough points, all this stuff, while you look below the surface and it's like, no, when this guy like really starts clicking and things get going, it's going to explode and go nuts. And we're seeing that now. We saw it last season for sure. I mean, he had 99 points last season, which is nothing to discount here, but we are really seeing him at the top of his game consistently now. It's not just some flash in the pan hot streak. This is just Jack Hughes. And as a 22-year-old who presumably, all things, knock on wood, go according to plan here, we have him for the next, 15 years. I could not be more excited. This is insane. I know I've said it like 4 times already on this podcast. This is just insane.
Yeah, just to put into perspective of how like the chances he's creating. This is from Todd Cordell over at Infernal Access. He does shot tracking almost every game. So last night he had 14 shot contributions. So that's either attempts or assists. The next closest Devil was the next closest forward was Timo Meyer at 8. He had 14, and then at 12 on defense was someone who's been playing a lot better as of late as the season has gone on. His brother Luke. So the two of them have been just kind of carrying. I don't want to say carrying the load Luke has been, but like he's been facilitating a good amount of offense. And these, like you said, these chances aren't going to Eric Holla and like Yanni Kokkonen and Yegor Sharangovich. They're going to Jesper Bratt, Todd Toffoli, like all-star caliber players.
Can we, we can finish the Jack Hughes conversation for sure, but can we talk about Jesper Bratt, 10 points in 6 games? I tweeted it the other day. I think he had 9 and 5 at the time. But Jesper Bratt scoring at almost a 2-point per game clip is a non-story for this team because that's how good Jack has been.
I think you tweeted that today, right? You posted the NHL.com screenshot.
I think it was yesterday, but yeah, same shit, different day. But yeah, it's another day ending in Y where BP's pumping Jesper Bratt's tires here. No, I mean, how? Hey, I'm gonna say it again, that it's insane. Like, how insane is that we have a guy who has 10 points and Toffoli with 9 points in 6 games, and that's like not even close to a top story on this team. Like, that is unheard of for Devils fans.
Yeah, I was going to bring up a similar point where, in the past, everyone knows, we were defensive juggernauts, even though we were one of the highest scoring teams during a couple of our dynasty years. But we never had that true 100-point score. It was more of, scoring by committee or Elias doing a bulk of the work and a few guys helping to chip in along the way. But we've never had that superstar that Jack Hughes is. And I'm sure throughout this podcast, we're going to keep saying his name because you can't not right now in Devils hockey. But yeah, Toffoli has been really good. I mean, I said it through the first few games where he wasn't actually finding the back of the net, but you could see it was coming. There was chances that he was setting up, he would just barely miss, or he was
Yeah.
like a half step behind. Like, oh, this is what that Jack Hughes kid can do. I need to be ready for that. And then you
Right.
get the one media scrum interview where they asked him, how are you adjusting to the systems? And he's like, oh, I just, you just follow Jack. You just do whatever he's doing, and then you're gonna be fine. And it's true. That's all you got to do on his line. And it's great to see Timo finally finding it with Jack, which I wasn't quite expecting to really click as much as it is, because I thought Jack might continue his torrid shots on goal pace that he was starting to put up last year. But I think Jack is even starting to realize, like, oh, I don't have to do everything. I can just put up 3-4 points a night by being the Jack Hughes I was, and
Yeah.
I can still probably put up a 40 point spot this year because I'm Jack Hughes. It's crazy. One last point, because I didn't mention the name, but Brat has been fantastic. I will say,
Okay.
just watching eye test wise, it feels like the line was the Jack Hughes to Foley line was more dominant with Brat on it. Now, maybe that was just the eye candy of Jack Hughes just for Brat on the ice together. Because Timo, I think, has been doing a lot of the small stuff really well on that line, crunching it to the boards, down below the net, all that stuff. But Brat has brought that now to the Nico line, and with bumping Palat up with them, it's worked out really well. I think they've cooked a few times since been getting put together, and Brat's been fantastic. And like you said, he's basically a non-story. He's third highest points now. I think to fully pass him with this insane past couple of games, but
No, Brad's still second.
second
Brad's at 10 and Toffoli's at 9.
at 9. Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, because he did get the assist last night on Nico's goal, right?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I said it kind of in this morning's video, but if our top 6 can keep cooking like this, sky's the limit as far as what the capabilities of this team are, because at minimum 5 of these 6 guys are returning for 4 years, right? So
Right.
at minimum 5 out of 6 of this are returning, and so it looks so good. I don't know where we want to transition from here. I know we mentioned Luke. I actually pulled up Jack and Luke's stats when on the ice together. I don't know if you guys have looked at this at all, but
from Money Puck?
oh my God. No, I went
crazy.
on Natural Stat Trick.
Right, yeah.
So in almost half an hour of ice together, when just purely looking Jack Luke, right? Doesn't matter what the rest of the ice looks like, purely just 5-on-5. So we're not even talking the power play where they we're almost putting up a 50% pace. Just 5-on-5 with these two guys together. Shots for and against, they're at a 73% pace for us. So it's 49-18. Expected goals is at 76% for us. 2.73 expected with 0.87 against. High danger chances are almost 72%. And you ready for the kicker? PDO, the luck stat, which 1.0 is you're basically getting the results you should be getting. They're at a 0.87. Meaning,
thanks, Akira.
Meaning they should probably have at least 2, 3, 4, 5 more goals for them during this stretch, or a few more or less against them as well. Torrid. Yeah. I'm not sure I've ever seen numbers like this with a 2-guy sample. Not even McDavid Draisaitl type numbers.
I do want to throw in just random here the 2013-14 Devils. The season leader for points was Jaromir Jagr with 67 in 82 games, 67 points. Jack Hughes is going to hit that by the All-Star break.
Yeah, he's going to have that by
He's going to have that back at Christmas at this point.
He's going to be sitting at Thanksgiving dinner having beat that already. I just wanted to throw that out there. Again, just a wild stat. And Jagr was even 14 points ahead of Elias in second place with 53. So just to put this all into perspective, what Jack Hughes is doing, I mean, I know Jagr's putting up 67 is not exactly setting any records, but in terms of history and team leaders, this is just how far ahead we are of anything we've ever seen before. But I do want to touch on, I know we just talked about points and stuff, has anyone noticed Jesper Bratt's game is a little different this year?
He's physical.
He's a bit feisty. I like it.
He's throwing hits. And it's not just, the buzzwords of getting into the dirty areas or whatever, because, people just say that they have no idea what it means about tough players, and it's largely nonsense from most fans, at least. You know, people who do know what they're talking about say it does mean something, but fans just love to throw it around for the gritty players, or whatever buzzword they want to use. But he's legitimately throwing hits, and there was a moment, I don't remember if it was last night, or 2 games ago. There was a moment where the other team had the puck and they were skating it out of their defensive zone, and Brat was kind of deep in the offensive zone, and he skated back, like ran from behind, took it off him, and skated around him and took it back into the offensive zone. And I remember thinking, like, oh my god, like that was such a 100% effort play. And not that he doesn't give 100% effort like everyone else, but I just remember thinking, like, if this is like the amount that he's putting into his game right now, and he can keep it up for a whole season, throwing hits, tracking people down like that, like being the fastest player on the ice that's not named Jack Hughes, I think we could see something really special that we even haven't seen from him, and we've seen some pretty cool stuff from him.
Yeah, speaking of just like the defensive side of the puck, and it's kind of something that I wanted to see earlier. I think we talked about maybe like right when the season started, was him on the PK, and he's doing that. He's doing that on the PK as well. Like, he's stripping guys. He's like making the smart play, like taking the puck all the way back into his end, or just killing clock in the corner. I mean, in terms of guys who have like, because I mean, we'll get into it a little bit, but like some guys have started slow. Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt have not, and you can't really. Brad caught a lot of flack with the whole effort thing. He caught a lot of flack in the playoffs, the whole Carolina thing. But it's like there's not one thing you can like discredit him for so far this year. He's been easily the second best player on the team.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to ramble here for a moment of across a few different things that were brought up. Okay, so first, I'm going to, I guess, slightly call myself out, ever so slightly,
Let's do it.
from last year talking point on. Experience not mattering too much in playoffs. That was the whole talking point with us versus the Rangers. Experience, bunch of new guys coming in, blah, 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 right? I'm going to say the experience from last year's playoffs is a big benefactor of the Jesper Bratt we're seeing now in the physical game. He has added to his repertoire. Slight nitpick on a point BP brought up. Top skating speed on this team, thanks to the new Edge website by the NHL, and compiled by JFresh on Twitter. Jesper Bratt has a higher top end speed than Jack Hughes.
All right, I'll take it. Yeah, correct me, please. Continue.
But Jack Hughes does have more bursts of speed than Jesper Bratt by like a pretty wide margin. So top end, Bratt has him slightly beat, but Jack Hughes on a more consistent basis is the faster skater. Everyone to nitpick semantics there.
Yeah, that's fine.
I probably had another point I wanted to make that maybe will come back to me, but we have been basically fellatioing ourselves here for the entire start of this podcast, and it would be remiss if we don't remind ourselves we did lose last night.
Yeah,
that was an L. Wasn't even an overtime L. Just a straight L. So if we want to kind of touch on that a little bit, because I think maybe there might be disagreement amongst the crew here. I'm not positive. What do we think about the actual overall performance of the team through 6 games?
First periods have been really bad. I'm sure that's not really a controversial opinion across anyone who follows this team, but after kind of like that 5 to 10, 15-minute mark, they kind of seem to get their legs under them. But it's another talking point. It's like you can only start that slow so many times and win so many games. I mean, 3-2-1, I think the record is currently. I mean, that feels about right at this point in time. I mean, the main story for me, we'll get to it in a little bit, has been the goaltending. I think I did a little stats dump on Twitter for those who don't know about. I used Mike McCurdy's data. I mean, the rates 5v5, offensively, defensively, look fine. The PK, like I mentioned, or I thought was going to be an issue, is still an issue, I think, even though it's still a little bit better than league average. I feel like it might be just like clearances and the goalie not making the save, but other than the shaky starts, I think they've been relatively fine.
Real quick, you know what's really weird about the PK? To start the year, it was absolutely getting clearances. and now the past 2 games it's been blue line entries. I don't know what
Well,
is up with that,
I
but it's
posted,
been
yeah, the blue line entry last night was brutal on the, I think it was on the tying goal, but to start the third period, I mean, I don't
yeah,
think,
no, so it was the triangle at the start of the third in the Caps game, and then it was the second goal where Matheson like just
well,
popped off.
that was a ridiculous play,
Yeah, oh no, I
to
mean
be
that
fair.
Matheson play was bonkers,
Yeah.
but same principle. I mean, he just danced right from the blue line, right in the middle of the ice, right up the slot and scored. It was it was a different play where it was a one-man show versus a pass setup, but essentially it was breaking down our PK through the middle of the ice right at the blue line. And that was 2 games in a row where the PK is given that up.
Yeah, the problem with, and I posted a couple of screen caps in one of the chats where the goal last night, they kind of set up. It was like the 4 guys across on the blue line, and I think it was Dylan Strom who was taking the puck up, and they kind of had him. They kind of had him where they wanted him, and then Mercer kind of 3 guys kind of went over to the same side of the ice, and then Strom just kind of fluttered it like into an open area of space, and like another cap hit that space, and then Marino was kind of stagnant, and then he had to do like a full 180 to get him to get back around to skate towards the net, and then Strom had to step on him, and then just, it's a tap in. So, I mean, I mean, like I mentioned, like Graves was going to be a big loss on the PK. I don't know what he could have done there, but I think they've been okay on the PK, but it's still a bit of concern for me considering the clearances haven't been great, and then the goaltending has been horrific to start the year. So that's kind of just
it's been awful.
It's been really bad.
One caveat, as the loyal Stan here, Vitek's game against Montreal was fantastic.
No, that was good. He was good. The numbers
last
don't
night
say
he was not. Last night was not great. Schmid was not great last night.
Schmid was horrific.
Schmid was brutal.
On the whole, not ideal. But Vitek did have a fantastic game against Montreal, where I think they peppered us early. They had a ton of like really great middle of the ice tips, basically slap passes right to the middle, right out in front of the net, where they got multiple tips right on net, and Vitek made a lot of really good saves. And I'm also not going to really grill a guy on a relief performance coming in the second either.
The second goal was really bad. The Michael goal was bad.
So the first PK goal is not on Vitek at all, no. But the second goal was not a good look. But again, that was also a 2-on-1. But he should have had it. I'm not. Schmid has not been in the regular season. I thought he had a pretty solid preseason, but regular season Schmid has not been quite it. I'm not ready really to grill Vitek too much quite yet. I think he's actually been overall plenty good enough. Full context taken into consideration.
Which is all.
Vitek's.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go. I was just say Vitek's clearly been better than Schmid. I don't think he's been amazing, but we don't really need amazing with this roster. We just need good enough. And I think for the most part, Vitek's been good enough, which is fine. But Schmid was, I mean, last night, this might just be recency bias taking over completely, but last night watching him was just like, oh, like he's really not in a good place right now. Like this is like a concerning performance, not just like a bad game.
Yeah, it's like, oh, so this is the reason why this guy was in the USHL 2 years ago at this point. I mean, not great. I mean, he was good last year. He was good. He was. I mean, we know how well he did last year in the playoffs, of course. But I mean, you're gonna rotate starts with these 2 guys. That was kind of the plan coming in, considering Hellebuyck got that extension, and then Tom elected to not, for better or for worse, elected to not get a goalie in the offseason. We'll see.
Who would he have gotten?
I'm just saying. Because that's the discussion.
I see the talking point all over the place about you could have gotten a goalie. It's like who?
Well, I mean, that was in somewhere we both talk at there. That was the topic of discussion. I mean, Hellebuyck, Saros, whoever. Like, I'm sure that'll come up later in the season. Because
Saros isn't available. You're not giving Hellebuyck that contract.
Well, right. Okay, I'm just saying. As an overall, like
I'm talking to the listener, not you. I'm giving talking points to the listeners. I'm not yelling at you.
No, I know, but I'm just saying.
This is so they can yell at their coworkers, so they sound smarter.
Yeah, and again, so like with the Hellebuck thing, it's like you will probably had to give him the contract he got in Winnipeg, which obviously we talked about it previously. No one wanted to do that. This Hisaros may become available. Nashville's surprisingly been a little bit better than I expected. They're not getting the results, but they're a little bit better. So we'll see if Hisaros becomes available. But in terms of the here and now, I definitely do trust VTech a little bit more. Not a little bit more, a lot more than Schmid. But Schmid has not a long track record, but he's been he's been good at points in his career. I know it's a very short career so far, but I'm sure it'll be fine. It's currently ugly.
They're definitely shortening their leash.
I think they will too.
For whatever the importance is to ride with the goalies we have versus acquire a goalie, that the distance of that gap is going to keep getting shorter and shorter with the performances they're giving. They may force his hand, Tom Fitzgerald's hand, into acquiring a goalie, like you said, for better or worse, on the move there. Trade deadline, something's going to be available. I mean, there may have not been a lot of availability in the offseason because it's the offseason and teams, at 0-0 think that they can do things. And then every year there's teams, maybe like a Predator style team, that keeps a guy like Saros around thinking, okay, like we're good with him. And then, maybe 2 months into the season, they're really far out of it and they didn't expect to be. And he becomes available when he wasn't before. So a lot can change as the season goes on. But it's really going to be the theme of Devils goaltending the past year and a half or so has been your performance is going to dictate what we have to do. Because if you guys remember last year with Vanacek and Blackwood, they said straight up before the season even started, there is no starting goalie. The spot is for whoever's playing the best. And that is our policy, and that's not going to change. And Vanacek became the starter. Blackwood had his issues, but became the starter through performance. And I think coming into this season, it's kind of the same thing where this whole idea of 1A, 1B versus 1 or 2 versus homegrown versus go out and get someone else is however you play is going to dictate what we're going to have to do. So moving forward, the goalie performance is going to matter a lot in Tom Fitzgerald's eyes of can we roll with these guys from here on out or do we have to go grab someone? So I don't know. As of right now, like I said, I think the leash is getting shorter and shorter, even 6 games into the season.
Yeah,
Maybe hot take, maybe not. I'm gonna say we do not grab a goalie this season at all. Reason being, I think VTech is gonna be just fine throughout the regular season, and even if Schmid struggles, he is waiver exempt. Send him down. Call up Kincaid. Call up Shalgren. We have 2 different.
I don't know if those are the answers.
Well, I think Kinky could maybe be the again. You're in playoff mode.
In the year 2023.
I gotta throw a hard stop to that one.
So you guys are telling me you would rather go out and trade at the deadline for. Now, if it's Saros, yeah, I'm in. Don't get it twisted. If Saros is available for the right price, I'm in. I can't think off of the dome a other goalie that would potentially be available that I am fine with as a trade deadline acquisition, given the track record of what goalies do at the trade deadline when switching teams, which is not great. They need time to really acclimate to defensive, when it's a completely defensive system team switch up, especially when you're talking about a team like us. You got to make sure it fits. And I just see VTech being plenty good enough in the regular season. We know his struggles are playoffs, but you're not going to know until you're in the playoffs again if he's righted that ship with his offseason mental training or not. And when it comes to your backup goalie, if VTech does struggle again in playoffs and Kincaid, let's say Schmid struggles like crazy in regular season, right? You send him down, let him get all the starts down in Utica. You call up Shalgren or Kincaid to be your backup and let VTech take the lion's share in the regular season. If Kincaid or Shalgren are showing they're not even worth dressing come playoffs, you call up Schmidt again, just like you did last year, and you see if he pops off in playoffs like you did last year. I just don't, and that's assuming VTech falls on his face again in playoffs like, he did last year. So I just don't see it being a trade deadline thing. Now, if that worst case scenario goes down, we are sending the farm for a off-season trade for some goalie. Who? I'm not positive.
Right. That's kind
But
of what
I just don't
was.
see it being an in-season thing unless we do it like December. I don't
Well,
see it being a trade deadline thing.
well, the hope was. I mean, I just have the NHL app on my phone, and I was just scrolling through the standings to see like who's bad or whatever, to see maybe who you could potentially acquire. And the one team that I would have thought would maybe be not in the mix or not this high up was the Bruins. Maybe like an Allmark or Swayman, probably more
The team
Allmark.
that hasn't lost yet.
That's what I'm saying. That's a team I would have expected to be like, okay, you can maybe get something here, but the teams at the bottom right now, like San Jose, no, Edmonton, God no, Blackhawks, no, Ducks, no. So it's like you're probably gonna ride with these guys. I mean, again, I'm only saying the farm, like you said, for like Saros. That's literally probably like cut and dry, like the only guy, because then you can extend him and then you can figure out the rest of the goaltender at a later point. But goaltending is just such a fickle position, and then like he's like with the defensive system, Vitek's been here a full year already, so he knows like the ebbs and flows of like where guys are going to go with the puck and everything. So it's like for better,
Especially with what Vegas did last year, teams are just going to be like,
again, like you don't need like who, Aiden Hill, Sergei Bobrovsky. Neither of them were like starters in the playoffs, right? It was like Logan Thompson and Spencer Knight or Alex Line or whatever. It's like
It was Line at the time.
right,
yeah,
then,
Lyon got them into playoffs, and then
right, and then
Bob got the net back.
Bob got hot. I mean, look, I mean, it's no secret Vitek struggled last year in the playoffs. Like Tatar had his like historical disappointments in the playoffs. I mean, guys can right the ship at any given moment, but I mean the team's too good to fail. Like they're gonna generate enough offense and keep enough of the high danger chances away. It's like give me a very average performance most nights. You're gonna put up like over 100 points in the season, and you're going to be in contention for the Stanley Cup. It'll happen. Like, they'll right the ship at some point. But
Don't
right
forget
now,
where Tom came from. Help, with those early Pittsburgh setups where you don't need a goalie, just outscore your problems. And
I mean, this team is good enough to do that. Yeah.
whatever.
I do have a feeling that pretty much at least once a week on this podcast, we're going to have trade for goalie conversation. We're going to keep doing it.
Same thing. It's going to be VTech. We'll figure it out. We're going to keep having defensive growing pains, and we'll still be a playoff team.
Like you mentioned earlier, though, the Montreal performance from VTech was really good because like that's basically all you want in a goalie. It's like you start slow, make 4, 5, 6, 7 big saves in the first period, keep us in the game, let us get our feet under us, power play, goal, whatever, get your feet going, and you're in the game. That's all you really want.
And then he comes in at relief last night.
You didn't. Well, just to add on to that, it's like you just didn't get that last night. You came out slow. You let up 3 goals on 8 shots. The game's over. I mean, yeah, you came back and tied and then got the lead, but like that's not gonna happen every night.
It's not sustainable.
No, it's not sustainable, and that's why you're 3-2-1 when you should probably be 5-1.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not. Go ahead. Nope. You're good.
No, I was gonna transition. So if you have more to add, go for it.
I got nothing. You transition, baby.
Yeah, that's what I thought. No, I was just gonna say. So moving forward here, we got Buffalo tomorrow night, and Minnesota is in town Sunday. By the way, I know I think I pointed this out. I don't know if it was on Twitter or on the pod here. The Devils only had to get on a plane one time in October. It was either all home games or they played in Long Island or somewhere still fairly local. I think Montreal would have been the only flight they took this whole month. Yeah. So after this, it's going to start. The schedule is going to get a little more rigorous, and I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get off to a hotter start because I feel like that was a really good opportunity to capitalize on that. Who knows? Maybe that even contributed to it that these guys are sitting at home with their families rather than, spending all their time on the road focused on being a hockey player. I say that kind of half sarcastically. I know they're taking their jobs very seriously at all times. And please don't think that I actually mean that their performance, suffers just because they're spending more time at home. Unless they have kids, maybe that's possible. I don't know. I'm rambling now, but my point is,
I get what you mean. It's like the season really feel like it kicks off like once you get on that first long road trip.
Right. They really haven't. They're not in mid-season form yet, like genuinely, because they really have had logistically an easy schedule so far. I don't mean the quality of competition, but like just work-life balance, they've had an easy schedule so far. So we're going to see that ramp up in the next 2 weeks or so. I think they have their first major road trip the first week of November. So looking forward, this is going to be an interesting 2 or so weeks. We're going to see kind of really what they're made of when they really get back into that mid-season swing here.
I love that point there, BP, for multiple reasons. One, Tyler Toffoli is like, wait, that's allowed? I've been playing in Montreal. I've been playing out in Calgary. You can just live at home for a month.
Right.
So that's fantastic. And then I believe we ended the season second best road team, only barely behind the record-setting Boston Bruins. So I think it'll be good for them. I don't, for whatever reason, just the home games. I don't know if the boys get a little too hyphy with themselves a bit.
Out in Hoboken.
Yeah. So, we'll see. I'm sure that'll course correct as the years go on, especially. But yeah, I think we're a really good road team for sure. I think we just kind of buckle it down even more than we do at home for whatever reason. I don't think it's anything that's like on purpose. It's just the way it kind of works out. But for tomorrow specifically with Buffalo, I think it is very interesting because very good for my fantasy team. Very not good as a Devils fan. Tage maybe seems to have found his offensive touch again. Yeah. So he was very slow to start, like atrociously slow from a Tage Thompson perspective. And their last game, he seems to have, or the last couple of games, he seems to have found it a little bit. So with the way our defense is giving up some quality chances, some breakdowns, not the most ideal team to go against, but this could be an absolute slugfest we might get like a 7-6 game tomorrow.
God, I hope so.
Like it might be a bonkers.
I could use another Montreal game, honestly. Give me another like 5-1 or like just a shutout win for whoever's in net because I can't sustain.
Do you not enjoy being the only team in the NHL to not have scored first in a game?
Ugh,
yeah,
brutal.
Is that
yeah? Can we just get a first goal? Like, let's just start there.
I mean, Levi's out, so you're getting Pekka Luukkonen or Devils legend Eric Comrie. So you would.
I'll take Comrie, or I would actually take Comrie or Levi right now with how Pekka Luukkonen had played in that last game. So,
I mean, I think UPL played the other night, Unfrozen Frenzy or whatever. So maybe you get Comrie tomorrow.
Former Devil, he's getting a shutout.
No, he's not good.
No, I said last night that Jack Hughes was going to end with 0 points because in their pregame soccer warm-up, he headbutted the ball out of the circle, and I was like, oh, he's done. Jack's cooked. I had also said in one of our chat groups at the very start of the third period when we were still up 1 goal, I said we're going to give up 3 goals, pull the goalie, score 2, and then win in overtime. And the Devils had to challenge the third goal against and win. If they didn't challenge the third goal, my script was coming true. They screwed themselves. I don't know what Ruff was thinking.
Y'all wildin'.
No, but on the real, I don't think there's any. I know a lot of Devil fans are panicking. I just don't see it, to be honest. I don't see the reason. I feel like on the whole, you just watch the team play and you look at the numbers and it's like, we're going to win a lot more than we lose. Are we going to set another franchise record beating out last year's point production? Probably not. But you should expect that with the lineup changes that were made. And I think on the whole, we're going to end up a better team by season's end, even though we're probably going to drop more points at the start of the year.
I'll take it.
Yep.
All right, fellas. I have some domestic obligations. Gotta go cook dinner, and it's so late, and I'm already in trouble over it. So I gotta wrap it up on my end here. I don't know if you guys had more to talk about. No, if I'm just hopping off, or we're wrapping up here.
No, that's a good place to drop it. I mean, we talked about Buffalo. We didn't really get to Minnesota, but that's all right. We can talk about that on.
BP, can you rant with me for 30 seconds about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. I got one more thing that was a hot button topic in our little chat group last night. I got to touch on it before we wrap up here.
I know what you're gonna say.
The Boo Birds. The Boo Birds were out last night in the end of the first period.
Yes, they were.
And I don't know if you joined in. But I personally hold a very strong opinion of if I'm watching that game and our boys didn't straight up quit on the ice, and I'm talking they're not lifting their feet, they're coasting, and we just get plummeted in, and the boys are like, yeah, on to the next one. I'm never booing my team. If they're out there putting in a legitimate effort, even if they are getting lit up for whatever reason, if they are getting lit up, as long as they are out there every shift still trying, which they were, and then pushed it to the metal in the second period, obviously, I'm not booing them. And especially if anyone's like, oh, yeah, my booing is the reason they came back out and had that second period, you're on one. But I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, to be fair,
Uh,
they
yeah.
had 2 shots in the first period, so it's not like it wasn't
Yeah,
completely
it was bad.
I think they had chances that just were not shots on net. There were some that just barely missed wide. They don't count as shots, but
So I couldn't disagree more.
this is what I'm here for.
So and I think it's kind of a bigger picture thing as well, as opposed to just last night. I think the beauty of being a sports fan. I'm gonna get real, spiritual here. I think the beauty of being a sports fan is kind of like how when you go to a theater and watch a show or watch a movie or something, there's the suspension of disbelief, right? Like you are going to engage in what you're doing. And I think the beauty of being a sports fan is that you are allowed to be as reactionary and outrageous as possible. And there is no real life consequence. It's not like the team winning or losing is going to actually produce positive or negatives in, real life. No one's going to get hurt kind of thing.
Tell that to the fans that have gotten punched in the head at games.
I mean, I think you know what I mean here, but
Sure. I know what you mean.
My point just being, I love the idea that my team wins, I get to cheer like no tomorrow. My team loses, I get to boo like there's no tomorrow. I am so in favor of sports fans just being outrageous at all times. So I think last night specifically, you're down 3-0. You have 2 shots on goal. They have more goals than you have shots in the first period, and it's a Washington Capitals team in 2023 that's doing this to the Devils team in 2023 after 5 previous games where the main criticism was got off to a slow start, really need to tighten up the start, really need to come out flying. We can't keep playing from down 3-0. So to come out in game 6 after we were chanting to fire the coach after 2 games last year, to come out on national TV, to come out in game 6 down 3-0 and have 2 shots on goal when the whole fan base is like, hey, this literally can't keep happening. Absolutely boo until you lose your voice. I don't care. It's fine. I think it's what makes sports fun, like genuinely. So I'm here for the content. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I'm happy to see the Boo Birds. I think they're having fun, even in their display of disdain for what happened on the ice there. Because you know what? When the Devils do then go turn around and score 4 goals, those are the same people losing their minds, going nuts out of happiness. So, let's take this even one step further. You gotta feel pain to feel happiness. You know what I mean? Like totally fair. I say do it again if it happens again.
Yeah. Also, it's New Jersey, so can you really expect anything less?
Oh,
yeah.
Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying you can't boo. I'm not saying don't boo. I'm saying I'm gonna make fun of you for booing because you're silly.
No, I reject that.
Yeah, see, I'm so upset that you have to leave here. I'm trying to make this quick because it's a great
I mean, it's a good topic that's not necessarily even relevant to right now. We could talk about this any other time, so we will get back to this. But
one last point on it is you were saying it's the same fans going crazy. I think you can hold your emotions in check and realize your team is out there busting their ass trying to keep this game, and that they don't need to be hearing boos from their home crowd that's got to be having their back to this game. And
they sure as hell do.
Can still be going absolutely nuts in the second when you have those comeback type games. And then you still have their back when they absolutely flub it come the third period as well.
Look, I hate to be that guy that brings this up, but when you're getting paid upwards of millions of dollars to play hockey and your biggest problem is the home crowd booing you when you're down 3-0 with 2 shots on goal, yeah, you know what? Get over it. Like it's just part of it.
My argument isn't I feel bad for the players, or like they're they don't need to be subject to that. I'm saying, as a fan, I do not understand the concept of booing your team at all. It just does not even compute in my head of why
It's
that would be an
feedback.
action you need to take as a response. Do you think they don't realize that was a poor start? Do you think they need they need to be told, like, hey guys, that wasn't very good. We're not very happy with that. 2 shots on goal in the first, 3 goals
No.
again.
I'm sure they
Yeah, no, that's
appreciate
not
that the
good.
fans care to that degree that they're voicing their
Yeah,
displeasure.
no, it's passion. It's passion. When you were in school and you got a terrible grade on a test, when
Did
you got
just
home,
lose you?
did your no, I mean, but did your parents say, well, you know that you got a bad grade. I'm sure you already feel bad about it, so I'm just gonna leave you alone. No, they laid into you to let you know
No,
they're.
I never got laid into. Well, one, I never really got bad grades.
I mean,
But
we
two,
Okay.
even my
we don't need to unpack my childhood here.
even
I'm
less
sorry
than
about that
stellar
one.
grades. No, it was, if I was putting in the effort, if I was studying, which I wasn't, but that's not the point really there. If I am putting in the effort and I'm doing overall very well, which the team overall is skating very well, it's just not the exact results.
Are
They don't
they?
need to be torn apart on it. Yeah.
They're not getting the
The
results,
goaltending,
then that's
they've
what
had a few
matters.
defensive breakdowns with young defensemen that are growing pains that you should have expected coming into this season. And then our goaltending, at least Schmid, has definitely been less than ideal, but Vitek's been mostly fine. We agree that the game-winning goal was not great, but came in a relief situation, didn't have much shots against him, even especially through the second, but even in the third. And so I'm not going to tear him apart for it. I don't see, like, I need to have this emotional negative reaction. I have to articulate and voice my disdain to a team that the one argument I heard was I paid 100 whatever, or 80 whatever ticket price you paid to go
Right.
see a game. I'm going to do whatever I want. And again, do whatever you want. I'm not telling you not to.
Right.
I'm just going to make fun of you if you boo. And you need to know that hockey's a very luck-based game. It's very random, and you're not guaranteed to go and see a W every time you pay to go see a game. You're not guaranteed
No,
to see
no.
the most back and forth shellacking either, and some pucks just go against you. There's bad games. They happen.
Right, right. And I mean, fans don't just boo when the team loses all the time, every time. But you're seeing a team that is now 3 wins and 3 losses, and their opponents are the Coyotes, the Canadians, the Capitals. Like, really, the strength of schedule hasn't been ridiculous. So at a certain point, when the results aren't great, and the first period, it wasn't good. Their play wasn't good, and so, I mean, you can say they're still putting in some effort, but 2 shots on goal in a period, like I said, which is less than the other team scored in goals, that's not the same as, oh, they're playing really well and got a few bad bounces and shit happens. That is, man, this sucks. Get it together. I'm going to boo you until you do. So that's where I stand on that. We'll get back to this. However, I am
Absolutely will.
getting into very dangerous territory.
No, go, boy, go. Outta here.
Dinner needs to be on the table
Yeah,
in like
we'll cut
15 minutes.
Yeah, we'll cut off there for today, and we'll get back to you guys on Sunday. Hopefully, recapping a couple wins. Later, boys.
Yo, give
Absolutely.
us some comments. Let us know what you think. Boo or no boo?
Yeah, that I'm down to hear from people on this one because I am so pro like content. I'm so pro like this is what makes sports fun,
Oh,
like for better
If
or
you know
worse.
anything about me, I am pro content, which is why I make fun of people that boo, because they can't control their emotions and are gonna have a reaction when I say that.
Let them live. All right, I gotta go. I'll see you guys.
Later, boys.
Dude.
Chester Rat's the best player in the NHL.